My name is Benjamin Law and I'm a freelance writer and journalist. I'm the author of two books, The Family Law and Geisha Adventures in the Queer East. I guess, when I think about my own work, I'm a bit of a gadget freak. Even when I started writing, I wanted to use good dictaphones because I always had trouble using sort of things to make them work in my own life. So the things that I find cool in all of this is trying to see how how they used to do it in the past when they didn't have digital technology. I mean, the equipment I use, like for instance an iPhone, that consolidates so many different things. I mean, Twitter is this information app, and in the past they would have gotten all of this stuff live through a teletype machine, wired in through phone lines. There were some objects that stuck out at me as cool straight away. I mean, for instance, at the back of the museum, there are a whole heap of typewriters, and some typewriters are pretty ugly and utilitarian, but there are others that are really fantastic. And of course, a lot of it was just to do with the look as well. I mean, sometimes the look is appealing because it's quite classic, and then other times I think it's cool because they look funny. Seeing how mobile phones used to look. I still remembered when mobile phones first became portable and affordable, but prior to that, they were strange, funny objects. So it's good to sort of date certain technologies in that way. I looked at these objects as a sort of linear progression of how writers and journalists have worked in the past. And even going through the museum, you do see how the technology changed, and changed so rapidly as well. I mean, they always say that technology advances not in a sort of linear, constant fashion, but in an exponential fashion. It doubles its capacity every time it increases. So to see how phones shrunk so rapidly to the point where not only they're so small, but incorporate so much of the other technologies that we relied upon in the past, that's really great. And I mean, even now when you talk to journalists who are one generation older than me, the newsroom was a completely different environment. I mean, not only because you could smoke your head off in a newsroom, but also the types of technologies are completely foreign to someone who is, say, my age, like 30 years old, for instance. When I think of the coolest people I know, they're probably not people that you would say are trendy. I mean, I like pioneers in their own field. So when I think of cool people, the coolest writer of all time, I think, is probably Joan Didion. She was a part of the wave of new journalism, writers like Hunter S. Thompson and Tom Wolfe and Gay Talese. They were a part of a whole generation that changed the way that we think about journalism. Asking me to define cool is a tricky thing because I'm not really sure I really know what cool is. I'm one of those guys who tends to pick up trends after they've actually happened. But for me, cool's a funny word because it's always about things that go into fashion, and that implies that it'll go out of fashion as well. But for me, something that's cool is a good story written with a lot of integrity and with a sense of excitement and entertainment as well. I like a bit of showbiz. That's cool. So that mixture, and I guess that kind of comes into the objects that I picked as well, but cool for me is a combination or a clash between great practical design and great aesthetic design as well. Museums, I think, are inherently almost associated with dagginess in a way. It's about the past, and the past for some reason is not cool because we've left that behind. We're looking towards the future for the next big thing that's cool. But I think within the past, and whether it's in the past of whatever our clothes we were wearing or the professional devices that we used, the technologies we used, you sort of find a new respect for things. And certainly going back and looking at old technologies that were used by people who were in professions that were very similar to mine, you build a new sort of awareness and recognition and acknowledgement that these people did the same profession as you, had to go about it in a completely different way, and that's sort of cool in itself. And you wouldn't realize that if the museum hadn't played a role in showcasing those things. The big idea that's shaping our time and place right now, in my mind, it's funny, because I work in news and the media, I work in journalism and non-fiction, and I feel like so many of the things that we focus on day to day aren't capturing the bigger stories that are right in front of us and yet are too complicated to write down. So climate change, for instance, is not something that's easy to write about on a day-to-day basis. Ongoing conflicts aren't easy to write about on a day-to-day basis, but the people who are writing about this stuff, they are pinning something down that I think we'll retrospectively look at and see their work as important and cool as well.